What if the very things that tried to break you became the reason someone else finds hope? Welcome back to Shit Creek Survivors. We share real stories of getting stuck up Shit Creek, the paddles we use to get out, and motivation for those stuck up their own Shit Creek right now. Today's conversation is one of courage, truth, and deep healing. Our guest, Sue Bowles, is an award-winning author, master life and mental health coach, and a survivor who has turned unimaginable trauma into a catalyst for hope. Sue opens up about her journey through childhood rape, sexual assault, eating disorders, and suicidal ideation, and how healing began when she stopped carrying it alone. We talk about self-worth, vulnerability, faith, community, and why telling your story might be the bravest step you ever take. If you've ever felt broken, stuck, or unsure if healing is possible, this episode's for you. Sue, thank you so much for coming on Shit Creek Survivors. It is an honor to have you on. How about you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here today?
I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, Kim. I'm excited for this. So I always try to figure out where to start. It's like,
Right.
is it
Yeah.
what I do, or is it how I got to what I do? And I think I'm just going to jump into how I got there, because I think that's
Okay.
more in line with maybe your listenership and just kind of what's on my heart to share.
Okay.
I'm a childhood rape survivor. I was raped by a classmate when I was 7 years old, and I kept it a secret 15 years because
Wow.
my perpetrator, as a classmate, held me against my will for 45 minutes after school one day. And I was saved by mom.
I'm
She
so
came looking
sorry.
for me, and she responded. And then before I go anywhere, because it's really important that I make sure I'm honoring my mom and the other adults involved. Nobody did anything wrong that day except my perpetrator. And it took me a long time to be able to say that because I felt it was my fault. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when we heard mom calling, he went out one side of the woods and kind of left me hanging because I'm like, "That's my mom. I got to go." And he's like, "Don't tell anybody." And I
Yeah.
didn't. So mom responded in love and fear. Anytime you have a
Mm.
7-year-old who's 45 minutes late from school and you don't know why, a parent, I would hope, is going to be scared crapless. And she
Yeah.
was. Um, and that fear drove her love and her response. Um, so anyway, so I kept it secret 15 years. And in between there, though, there was a lot of other stuff. There was other sexual assault from some neighborhood kids. Um, between there and high school to college, I ended up developing an eating disorder. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, struggled with depression, have twice considered ending my life, suicidal ideation. Um, as recent as 2008, I was dabbling in cutting. So, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
stuff packed in there, parental divorce, just all these different things.
Right.
To say that I want to build that up because what happened when I was a senior in college was my turning point.
Mm-hmm.
One of the critical things in anyone's life is to have somebody that you can talk to. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care if it's a life coach, a counselor, a friend, a pastor, brother, a sister, somebody, friend you go out to coffee with, whatever. In this case, for me, it was my dean of students. I was a screwed up college kid when I walked on campus, went to a small college in Northwest Ohio, and quickly got to meet the dean of students because I kind of wasn't going to class but wanted to play basketball. And those don't go those don't go hand in
Mm-hmm.
hand. But there was
Right.
something about Ed. When he listened to me, I was like, there's something about him. I bet you he'd be a cool guy to talk to. So I made another
Mm.
appointment to talk to him. And it ended up that I'd go back every week. And Ed kind of became my confidant, my counselor. And he knew he had a screwed up college kid. I think he spent about 4 years trying to figure out what is this. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until that senior year he had taken on a new responsibility over in the development office. He's over in the cabinets and the president's office. Had told me he'd still be available to me, which I was grateful for. Wasn't real sure I wanted to walk over where the president's office was and the academic dean
Mm-hmm.
and everybody to see I'm talking to this dude all the time. But he
Yeah.
knew I wasn't ready for the work world, and he was giving me some homework assignments. So we were going over it one day, and Cam, to this day, I don't remember what the question was. I wish I could, but it doesn't matter. But I
Yeah.
remember him asking the question, and I'm inspecting the weave of his carpet because I could not look at the man.
Mhm.
And the secret came out when I didn't even know there was a secret to come out. And I simply
Mm.
said, well, when society tells you not to say anything, and that's all I said. Didn't know it was coming. And Ed very astutely said, Sue, did somebody hurt you? I said, yeah. He
Mm.
said, your parents? I said, no. Somebody else? Yeah. He said, what happened? And he was the first person I told. I was 22 years old
Wow.
before the secret came out. I did not know then that was my liberation day. Doesn't mean I was
Yeah.
liberated that day. I'm still fighting through some of the stuff now, 5+ decades after it happened. But
Mm.
the importance is having somebody there, because where that has led me is to what I do now. What I do now is I walk with other people who are doing the work to rewrite their narratives so they can
Mhm.
live the life they don't think they deserve. And everything
Mm.
that's wrapped up in that statement I just said gets to the crux of everything that was going through my head and going through the head of anybody else who's struggling, trying to get through, as you call it, the Shit Creek survivor story.
Yeah. Wow. Got me tearing up over here. My
Mhm.
goodness. But,
Thanks.
it was thank you for being that vulnerable to share that. You're so right. It does man, I just getting the words out of your mouth have has so much power. Just getting that secret out, you know, into words, just something, and you're like, "Oh," it's just it's
Mhm.
weird, like you're shedding something
Mhm.
that you didn't it's weird that you don't wanna let it go in a way, and at the
Right.
same time, you want it to be gone forever. It's like it
Mhm.
keeps sort of wrapping around. You have that kind of experience with it?
And that's where my eating disorder came from.
Is it?
Eating disorders have absolutely nothing to do with food and everything to do with unresolved emotions.
Really?
And
Okay.
and, and eating disorders are an addiction. So my brother
Mm,
is going on 14 years sober. My dad was 33 years when he went sober when he died. In the same way, that's an addiction. Eating disorders are also an addiction. The key
yeah.
difference is that in every other addiction, to find sobriety, to find freedom, to find healing, you do without. You
Mhm,
avoid whatever the substance or situation is. With an eating disorder, you have to you can't do it without. You have to take it in instead.
mhm,
If you were to avoid eating, you're going to be dead in about 2 weeks.
mhm,
So that's the main difference with it being addiction, is that in this addiction, you have to face it head on. You can't say, I'm just not going to deal with this.
mhm,
I'm not going to drive by the bar. You
mhm.
know, I
Right.
can't
You
not
can't
eat
not drive by the
breakfast.
grocery store. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Or look in the refrigerator or eat or drink or anything like that. So a lot of the same principles, but yes, I had those same things, and I didn't enter recovery from my eating disorder until 2016.
Whoa.
I'm on 9.5 years right now,
Heck yeah.
just because I don't have it all figured out. I
Mm,
am still figuring it out, and I'm not figuring it out alone. And that is one of the key things when I speak and when I coach, is that you cannot do it alone,
yeah.
because your story is lying to yourself, because your
Mhm,
story wants to protect yourself, because your brain is not processing things correctly.
mhm.
Scientifically proven with neuroscience. Trauma literally rewires your brain and reprocess and how your brain processes things. And it
Yeah.
goes into survival mode in some way or other. So therefore, your brain is not telling you the whole story. It's telling you what you need it thinks you need to survive. So in
Mhm.
essence, it's telling you half the story, which means it's lying to you. And that's
Yeah.
why it's so absolutely critical to have other people, objective people, that will speak truth to you. And sometimes truth is hard, and sometimes
Mhm,
truth sucks, and truth is
mhm.
still freeing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to hear the truth when you're in the darkness, but the truth is the only thing that's gonna get you out. you know?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
and it's hard to be the person who delivers that news, you know?
It is.
I'm sure you've done that before many times coaching, and,
Mhm.
it's not always what people wanna hear, but it's what they need to hear, and that happened to me a bunch. That happened to me a
Mhm.
bunch, and, if not for those people planting those seeds or pushing me in different directions that maybe you should look over here, maybe you should look over there,
Mhm.
I wouldn't have done it, you know?
Right. Right.
My gifts during my recovery were desperation and, core people who wouldn't leave me even when
Yeah.
I didn't even love myself.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? They never stopped
Yeah.
loving me.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen for everyone, and I'm so
Mm-mm.
sorry that it doesn't, but, you know, there are people out there. You can find your own tribe. I've done it through the AA program. You know,
Mhm.
you've done it. Obviously, you've set up organizations that help
Mhm.
individuals, right? So let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that. So you went from your childhood and then now you're in college, your senior year, and you just almost had a spontaneous utterance of if society tells you to be quiet, and he keyed in on it, right?
Yep. Right.
Do you remember kind of how life started shifting after that? Was that kind of like a main catalyst to you being like, "Oh, maybe I can." Well, first off, I guess you had to approach it on your own, right? You had to kind of heal.
Yeah. Yeah, because, no one in my family knew. Ed was the first person I told,
Yeah.
and I had the privilege of telling him. Oh, I think it was 1999. I think I met with him again, back to for homecoming, but I had a chance to tell him that I call
Mhm.
him one of the people that the most influential people in my life, and there's no greater privilege than telling somebody how they've affected your life. Now, he passed about a year and a half ago now, but
Mhm.
I'm grateful that I had that chance to tell him because and I will tell the story until I die because it was a pivot point. Um, but yeah, for me, I have a I I had Ed, yes, um, and I had to deal with it myself for a while. When I left his office, I felt like I had a scarlet letter on my forehead. I'm walking
Mhm.
back from his building in the admin his office in the admin building back to the student union, feeling like everybody is looking at me and everybody knows. And hear all these
Mhm.
generalities because that is part of the lies that are being told, is that
Yeah.
everybody knows. No one, everybody, no one. It's always, it's very extreme with no room in the middle, and in the middle is where the glory is. So,
Yeah. And
I want that to, your listeners to really hear that because that's what I mean when I say your mind is lying to you, that's what I mean. It's not
I've
telling
been
you
there.
the truth.
I have thought at many times, especially after being injured, that everyone around me knew
Mhm,
that what had happened, and that I didn't handle it properly, and that I should be embarrassed, and all these kinds of things. And I would respond to these thoughts that I'm having
mhm,
for people, you know,
right.
and I would chastise them,
Assumptions.
be like, how could you say that about me? And like, so
Mhm,
you're right.
yeah,
It's your mind is tricky. I don't
yeah,
it is such a
yeah.
weird thing that's trying to keep you alive and,
Mhm.
keep you safe
It's
by doing all it's
yeah. And I think for me, you asked about if things changed. Ed asked me, I've seen a counselor in town too, and he asked me if I had told him. I said, no. He's like, I think you need to tell him. So I asked Ed if he would go with me. I'm like, I really? So he went with me. And for the counselor didn't know Ed was coming. So we walk in
Mhm.
there and he's asked, how are you doing? And I'm just dancing like crazy. He looks at Ed says, what do you think? And this is the truth speaker. Ed says, I think Sue should quit shadow boxing and tell you what she told me.
Love
But
it.
that's what you need. Sometimes you need somebody to kick you and to be bold for you when you don't have the courage to be bold enough. But
Yeah.
even then, it was, it was still a while. I mean, I went to grad school after I graduated, and I was only a few months out of telling Ed, and I was struggling, and I went to my supervisor, who was the complex director, and we were talking one night, and I ended up telling her. And this is I think this is where a pivot started, was I told Amy, and, she was very comforting and everything, and said, when asked my permission to set me up with a appointment with the counselor. She called me the next day and said, "Hey, we're set up here. I'll go over with you." And what was
Mhm.
cool was that when I came back, there was a note in my box, and I put this in my book, my first book. A picture of the note. It says, "I'm proud of you. Come have a muffin." And it was that follow up, that
Mhm.
support, that acceptance.
Yeah.
And it can be scary to tell somebody who's your supervisor, but I
Mhm.
was to that point. Once you could think of a can of pop. Once you crack it, that all that fizz is gonna keep coming out even if you don't know about it, and it's gonna
Yeah.
find a way out. And that was my first step to freedom, but
Mhm.
I didn't start dealing with the rape until 2014. What really changed it for me was 2008. A dear friend who is my pastor's wife. I'm a Christ follower. So
Mhm.
my pastor's wife passed away from cancer in 2005.
Mm.
2008, I'm grieving her as if it was yesterday. My eating disorder
Mhm.
behaviors are coming up because they had been under control for a while. And I was like, I went to Chuck, I told him, and he's like, got me connected with somebody named Amanda. That was 2008. I am still with her now. And I
Awesome.
say I don't have shame with that. I don't, I share that openly so that
Mhm.
listeners hear that it is okay to not be okay.
Mhm.
And that sometimes just having somebody else you can talk to is really helpful.
Yeah.
And now in this case, we had to spend 6 years to get me stronger in the present before we could even go to the past. And I think I say
Mhm.
that because a lot of people think going to counseling, they're going to dig up all my history and I got to get into all this stuff. And I can't even figure out how to communicate for myself right now. Um,
Mhm.
a good counselor is going to pace it and be able to make sure that you can still stay strong in the present before you
Yeah.
go back to the other stuff. And Amanda was very patient, and we had to deal with a lot of stuff. That's when I was cutting. Eating disorder was kicking in. I was losing weight at one point in time. She's like, "You got one chance left to show me you can gain weight, or we
Mhm.
need to talk about some kind of treatment program." So there was that accountability. And
Yeah.
in essence, she was on my payroll, so she was
Mhm.
she was doing what I was paying her to do. Um, but we really didn't even deal with it till 2014. You were talking about finding your tribe. My tribe is a group of people called Walking Stick Retreats. I found them in 2014. And there is a movie that came out in 2014 called Ragamuffin. It's based on the life of the late Christian musician Rich Mullins. And
Okay.
um, if you've heard the song Awesome God or Step by Step, those are a couple songs of Rich's. And those are two of his
Awesome
big ones.
God for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So um, went to see that movie and it hit hard. And I
Yeah.
brought mom and a bunch of her friends and our friends. I'm like, "Just got something in my eye, mom," because I was still
Yeah.
wearing a mask. I was
Mhm.
still lying to myself and I didn't want to be found out. So
Mhm.
I didn't even feel comfortable letting my mom know the movie was speaking to me and making me emotional. That was
Mhm.
on me. Fast forward later that year, my brother was serving 18 months for a drunk driving accident. He got home. He's like, "Sue, I want you to go to this retreat. It's my thank you. You've been here a year and a half without me. Just help mom. Just go." So I went. I was supposed to go to Nashville. It took me a while to kind of get on board with God's plan. Say, I'm going
Mhm.
here instead. The only commonality we all had with this at this point in time that we'd all seen this movie, we were all affected by the movie. And very boldly and humbly, the first year, they set up a Facebook retreat room for everybody going to the retreat. They asked us to share our stories. Now, mind you, this is 2014. First time I said anything was 1982. I had not told anybody else since except for Amanda, my counselor. And I
Mhm.
think my pastor knew. Nobody in my family knew. And here I am lurking in this room about 3 days, encouraging everybody else. Yeah, all this other stuff,
Yeah.
cheering them on so that I could kind of slither behind the clouds. And so you wake up that one morning and your chest is just pounding out of your heart's pounding out of your chest. So I put on my pot of liquid courage, my coffee, and
Mhm.
for a half hour I typed out my story and I hit post and I gulped. And all day long was my mind lied to me, but it was convincing me that I was gonna hear the same stuff I'd heard all this time. I was gonna be trashed. It's my fault. I can't believe this. All this other thing. You're so screwed up. You're too far gone. You're a total waste of space. All these things I had been telling myself for decades. And to this day, 11 and a half years later, there hasn't been one negative comment. Instead, it was, I want to meet you. You encourage me. You give me courage to share my story.
Yeah.
All of that has fed into where I am now with my step ahead, and I'll share with that in a little bit. But that story, to again make the point that you made as well, that you cannot do it alone. And
Hmm.
this retreat community, we meet twice a year for retreats. We're active throughout the year, interacting with people, and it is my place where I can just be. I can just go. When we lost Dad, and we lost Dad December 27th, 2022, and I was locked and blocked for 4 months. And I
Hmm.
went to retreat, and that was my safe place where I could finally grieve my dad and finally
Yeah.
let him go. So
Yeah.
having that tribe, having those people, um, it takes risk. Yes, you have to take the first step, and it is
Hmm.
so very worth it. So very worth it. You found it in AA.
Yeah, I wonder why when we need the help, we know that other people are there. We even know that other people are going through stuff. Why we hold back so long and why we think it's almost like giving up asking for help when it's really
Mhm.
not. It's like the
Right.
next chapter. It's like you're opening another toolbox. But we get this feeling, and I mean, this definitely in law enforcement, military, those sort of things. Like, we don't talk about feelings. We don't talk about, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, yeah,
If I could share a couple thoughts,
yes.
I think I think one of the reasons is that survival mode has convinced us that the lie is truth.
Hmm.
And part of that lie is fear, based in fear.
Hmm.
When you're in survival mode, you are fearing something that's going to attack you. And in this case, it has warped your mind, and I'm including myself with this.
Yeah,
It's warped our minds to tell us and convince us that nobody cares. Again, generality.
yeah.
No one's going to understand that.
Hmm.
They're going to blame me, and they're going to be right. And I think we hold back out of fear because all that fear has become negative self-talk. And we
Yeah.
and we and we take that as gospel truth. And we haven't
Hmm.
learned how to step out of that, look at it from a neutral standpoint, and see it from the other side to be able to get the story straight.
Yeah,
Because again, you're only getting half the story, and that's the world you're living in.
yeah.
And I wish it was as easy as saying, "Hey, let's just do this and it's going to be gone."
Right.
I'd be lying to you if I said it was.
Yep.
At some point in time, you got to be desperate enough,
Hmm.
or is it, the friends that you have friends. We were talking about the friends that will say something. Someone who loves you enough to put it on the line. Sometimes you
Yeah.
just need to have that in a gentle way, sometimes in a blunt way. But
Hmm.
everybody needs somebody. And let me put this out there right now. For your listener who may be saying, I don't. I don't know. I am alone. You don't know what has happened to me. There's no way anybody would ever support me with what, if they only knew the secret. In the show notes, my contact information will be there. I would love to walk the journey with you because you're worth it.
That's beautiful. That is so beautiful. And yes, everyone out there who's listening, you have you have a tribe here. There's tribes all over the place. To tell you the truth, like when I've talked about it on here. Something happened to me when I was 5 years old. I carried that secret for about 30 years.
Mhm,
And what I found out is like when you have a trauma from 5 years old, you store it as a 5 year old. So
mhm,
the emotions that come up when that memory pops up are very young and
mhm,
very like, I remember telling my therapist what had happened and I left there. That was the first person I'd ever told. I went straight to my parents' house and I told them. And I imagined they were going to pick me up and hold me and tell me I'm a good boy. And like, literally like
Mhm.
5-year-old stuff. And, you know, there wasn't so much that response because I wasn't 5 years old. I was a, 35-year-old man standing in front of them. But it was like that little kid cry where like your belly's moving so fast it like hurts to cry almost. It's almost like a
Mhm.
primal cry type of
Mhm.
deal. And it aff- it affected my whole life. But back to the tribe thing, like the people who helped me the most and who probably and who it sounds like helped Sue and who will help maybe the listeners out there most aren't actually going to be your inner circle. So
Right.
you sometimes have to remember that maybe the help is somewhere else. And what I would like to say about that is what's cool about going to a counselor or a therapist is they don't know you. They're a
Mhm.
third party. They're not a mandated reporter. They're not going to run off and tell somebody, "Hey, I just ran into this person who said, something crazy." They keep it secret. And what I found the most is when I say it out loud, I usually catch myself. I'm like, whoa, that sounds weird out loud. I
Mhm.
was thinking that, but it sounds weird out loud.
Right.
And you start to untangle stuff. And at first, if you're anything like me or with a counselor, you're almost like, again, my first AA meeting where I'm like, I'm not like you, or I don't need this. You're just slicing off little bits and like pretending that you're okay. And then you start accepting these bits and you start getting better. So then the
Mhm.
onion starts peeling a little bit more, or the
Mhm.
the ball starts twisting a little bit more. So you see different angles now on different parts of your life that
Right.
were affected by that one original thing. And
Mhm.
now you can see the relationship when before you kind of
Right.
couldn't.
Right.
Because I was with you. I was always telling myself that I wasn't worth anything, that,
Mhm.
that what had happened kind of defined me, and that it was sort of a hopeless situation, like I'd never
Mhm.
be able to get out of it.
Right.
And I'm a former police officer. I have handled cases where I have looked across from children and been like, this has nothing to do with you. You are not at fault. I remember I
Mhm.
chased a guy all the way to Chicago one time because he did
Wow.
the same thing. But he was videotaping it. And so we had to figure out how to get the computer without before he like got rid of it. So we ended up doing this thing with the mom and anyways, like busting him for some marijuana, getting him out of the house, but then seizing the computer, getting it to the proper authorities, and they were able to bring up these images and
Mhm.
properly prosecute him, get him back from because he ran, he went up to Chicago, and we were able to get him back. Anyway, so like and we were talking about it later after I explained to Dennis, the co-host, what had happened, and he goes, "I remember that case." He goes,
Mhm.
"Did that case affect you?" And I go, "Absolutely." I go, "That
Mhm.
paralleled
Mhm.
so much of what it was. It was the
Mhm.
mom's boyfriend. It was introduced as an adult game. It was, all these kinds of
Right.
things.
Mhm.
And and I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but just for anyone out there, you don't have to go talk to your mom or dad about what's happened. Like
Nope.
you don't. Sue just proved that. Like if you need to talk to a
Nope.
stranger about it, you can talk to a stranger. Different people have different avenues. Some people go up a religious avenue. I wasn't ready for that at all. Some people end up in a counselor's office, but if you're not ready to share, you're not ready to share.
Mhm.
But I encourage you to take that step because what you just
Mhm.
said, Sue, is like your first step of freedom from that
Yeah.
oppression, from that burden, was actually stepping to that ledge and blah, and then the
I was
world didn't
desperate enough.
collapse. Yeah, and
I
then
was desperate
it
enough. I was imploding, and I was going to, uh, probably leave this world.
yeah.
And but for me, I said earlier I was a Christ follower. In 1991, my parents divorced after 34 years of marriage, and, um, I that was the second time I was considering leaving this world. And
Mm,
I went on a ski trip with, a camp I worked at, and one of my very dear friend. There was a Christian musician in the 80s, 90s named Billy Sprague, and he became a very dear friend of mine. And we talked that last day. And I told him, I said, I need to learn from something you've gone through. And he's like, what's going on? I said, how do you go on living when all you want to do is die? Because he had
mm,
lost his fiancee 3 years prior. And she was on her way to surprise him at a concert. And he found out right before I went on stage. and he was neck deep in grief, and he had considered leaving the world too. But that is the power of my step ahead. I mentioned my step ahead earlier. My step
Mhm.
ahead is my business where I coach and I speak and I write. And the whole premise of that is you only have to be a step ahead to help the person behind you. In this
Mhm.
case, Billy didn't have it figured out, but he gave me enough hope to hang in there. It still took 6 months for my heart to start thawing. But
Yeah.
in that time, there were only two thoughts keeping me alive during my parents' divorce. One was, and I could have chucked this one if I really needed to, if I tried hard enough, was my family didn't need to go to my funeral in the middle of the divorce. At least I was
Yeah.
rational enough to understand that. But then secondly was what I call a nagging optimism. And I said before, I'm a Christ follower. That nagging optimism was my relationship with Christ. That is why I'm standing here. Not because of anything I did, not because of what anybody else did. It started with that. But this whole thing about my step ahead, we like to think we have to have it all figured out. And,
Mhm.
and many people won't go through the doorway of a counselor or a church or a life coach like myself because like but I don't know what's wrong yet, and I need to know what's wrong so I can fix it. And
Yeah.
we're in a fix it mindset, and we're not comfortable with sitting in, as you call the show, the shit. We're not
Yeah.
comfortable sitting in it to be able to then start moving through it. We want to jump over the creek. But
Mhm.
sometimes there is a lot that happens in that process of figuring it out. You can't go from A to C and not have the bridge in between. The
Right.
chasm is too deep. You have to be able to walk that. And you
Yeah.
can't walk that bridge alone. But that is
Mhm.
also the power, just like Cam said, you don't have to tell your parents. It doesn't matter who you tell. It may be a totally objective third party. And
Mhm.
that's that bridge because they can see things from another angle and you don't have to impress them. A lot
Yeah.
of times we keep it secret because we're concerned about our image, we're concerned about
Mm.
our persona, we're concerned about what's somebody else gonna think.
Yeah.
And those people have not walked your shoes, therefore their opinion really has no weight. But we
Yeah.
let it have weight. And at some point in time, we have to be able to take that first step. For
Mhm.
me, I was desperate enough when I finally signed on to go to this retreat. I was petrified,
Mhm.
absolutely petrified. But here's the power of sharing story. My brother had just served 18 months for a drunk driving accident, like I talked about. He saw
Mhm.
somebody in town at the grocery store. They said, "Man, I haven't seen you in a while. Where you been?" "In prison." Now, in my mind, if anyone had reason to be ashamed, if anyone had reason to not be honest or authentic about your story, in my judgmental mind, it was my brother, because not everybody around the world says, "I just got out of 18 months prison."
Right.
And yet he did. And when he came home and told me that, that really convicted me. I was like, if he can do it, why can't I? And I
Mhm.
went to my counselor when I finally signed on to go to the retreat. And I said, "I just want to be authentic. Get me ready."
Mhm.
Exact quote. And we spent 6 weeks dealing with my fears, 6 weeks of dealing with what was I concerned about? What was I afraid of? How could we make this manageable so that I could meet my goal of going to a place with 50 other strangers and daring to face myself and daring
Yeah.
to face my story? That whole retreat program has since become the whole path that where my healing has come, or it's a good chunk of it. The first year, I was in denial about my story up to now. I didn't like it. I hated it. 2014,
Mhm.
after the movies, when Amanda and I started digging in, one of the hardest homework she ever gave me was to say in the mirror 10 times a day out loud for a week with my eyes open, the rape was not my fault. Because up to now, I was saying, I was putting my adult understanding on a 7-year-old. I was not being kind to that little girl, and I had unrealistic expectations of her. And in
Mhm.
that, I was telling that little girl that it was all her fault. And I had to get my own story straight. So
What
doing that homework.
did it come
Good.
through, like, in your head where, like, when you were talking to your younger self negatively, because I think this is a key topic for a lot of us. Were you telling that girl that she was stupid? Like, that was your fault, you did something dumb and you got yourself into that situation?
How
Is
could you
is
be
that
so gullible? Why didn't you know? I can't believe you did
mm,
that. You're so
mm,
stupid. Why I can't believe you fell for that.
and
And I deserved it because I deserved what happened because I followed Bobby into the woods.
so if anyone heard any of that and then have ever thought the same way, I need you to open your ears right now because it may be a core moment for
Mhm.
you where you're actually saying, "I'm actually say those things to myself," and
Right.
it it doesn't make you feel good. It doesn't make you
Mm-mm.
feel good, and
Mm-mm.
there's never any
Mm-mm.
end, like, there's never enough. There's never enough lashings you can take to, like,
Right.
work off the pain or whatever, and I tried that
Mhm.
forever, you know what I mean? Like, bang me,
Mhm.
bruise me, like, hurt me, I don't
Mhm.
care, like, if it gets me closer to heaven and better back into
Right.
God's good graces, let it happen, which is, like, totally self-destructive,
Mhm.
totally self-destructive, and I know now that, like, I mean, I believe I did the classic, like, the prodigal son, I left. I said,
Mhm.
"Screw this. I'm gonna do it on my
Mhm.
own. Everyone's stupid. No one knows what I'm going through," all this
Right.
kinds of stuff, and I ended up in a place where I was just like, "I can't believe I've done this," and
Right.
all I wanted to do is just go home and apologize, not for anyone to take me in.
Mhm.
It's just to be able to say I was
Right.
wrong,
Right.
and, yeah.
Yeah, and let me pick up on the story here. So when I'm doing this, at first it starts, the rape was not my fault. The rape was not my fault.
Yeah.
And as we talked earlier about the power of verbalizing, that
Mhm.
was in motion right here because in the course of a day or so, it started becoming the rape was not my fault. And then I
Mhm.
started putting emphasis on other syllables, other words. The rape was not my fault. The rape was not my fault. The rape was not
Mhm.
my fault. It was
Mhm.
not, and just doing that. And it got louder like that because I needed to hear and have that solid under my feet because that
Mhm.
was the turning point. As soon as I let myself off my own hook, then
Mhm.
I learned to start giving myself grace. Then it
Yeah.
was okay to be messed up. Then it was okay to ask for help because I
Yeah.
knew I didn't have it together. So when I went to this first retreat, we were dealing with the rape and I was imploding. I said earlier, the eating disorder behavior is the whole deal. I went into that rape to the retreat calling myself what I call now the holy exception. I was believing the lie. I was too screwed up, too far gone, and a total waste of space.
Mm.
And as a Christ follower, that's why I say holy exception, because everything is to you. There were so many generalities that I wasn't owning it. I was denying my story. So that first year at the retreat, I came face to face with my story. I took
Mhm.
my mask off and I had
Mhm.
to own my story. And that brought a lot of tears because one of my biggest fears was I was going to cry and never stop. I
Mhm.
cried and I stopped. And
Mhm.
then and that alone was freeing just to finally own my story and let go of all of that pent up emotion from decades. The second year, I had ended up having to grieve my story because every story has loss and
Mhm.
every loss is worthy of being grieved. And I
Yeah.
had not given myself permission to do that before because I had to be the strong one. I was always the go-to gal for everybody. Sue was okay. Sue was your solid gal. Go to Sue when you got an issue you need fixed.
Yeah.
And that was part of my mask was the perfectionist and
Yeah.
and the I don't have any problems. So when let myself off my hook, then I was finally able to grieve my story and give it the proper time and emotion that it deserved because there's a
Yeah.
lot of loss in that story. And then the
Yeah.
third year is where is the big pivot point. I left there with the nugget, I am valuable to God. And when I started
Mm,
believing that I had something to offer, that's when things took off. That has led to my step ahead. That led to the Dare to Believe movement, because that whole Dare to Believe movement is all about how do you answer personally, do I believe that I matter? Yes, you need other people to believe in you. Yes, it's good if they say that to you. And until you can answer the question in a positive, firm, bedrock way for yourself, that
hmm
yes, I believe that I matter. The hard truth that we were talking about earlier is that permanent life change cannot and will not happen. Because if you're doing it for everybody else, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You've heard that before, but this is a different way to look at it. You're doing it
hmm
for everybody else. You're doing it because you think they matter and you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing that we kind of give that power away.
Hmm.
And even myself, like I question myself even now, why do I seek the validation of others to make me feel good about myself? That is such a
Correct.
backwards way of
Hmm.
doing it. And the people
Hmm.
you're wanting to validate you don't even know. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
not as if they're denying it from you, but it's like,
Hmm.
you're looking for it and your trauma brain is, scanning always. Am I okay? Am I okay? Am I
Hmm.
okay? Like,
Hmm.
is mom or dad mad? Like all this kind of
Right.
stuff. And, like you're just constantly just trying to be okay.
It's that
Yeah.
survival thing and having to control, because if I'm in control of my environment, okay, I can breathe. I don't have to hold my breath for 2 seconds.
Hmm.
If mom's good and dad's good, and there's no discord anywhere, and my friends are happy, and I've made my friends happy, and I'm getting good grades, that gets my teachers happy, and I show up at work, so that keeps my boss happy, then I can make everybody else happy,
Yeah.
and maybe that'll make me happy
Yeah.
when
But
you're
you end up
really
feeling
just
hollow.
dying on the
Yeah.
you're dying on the inside. Yeah.
Yeah. You're dying on the inside. Yeah. Cause
As
there's, yeah.
as the old song says, "You're looking for love in all the wrong places."
Yes. Yeah. Self-love is so hard. I don't know
It
why it
is.
got so
It is.
hard, and
It
and
is.
there's lots of these influences coming in nowadays that are even beyond what we grew up with. You know what I mean? You've got
Mhm.
social media, you've got marketing that's telling you that the phone you bought last year is no good anymore. You need to buy the new one or you're not enough, and the way that gets pushed on people, you need this, you need that, you need this when you really need nothing. That there's no U-Haul behind a hearse at the end of the day. And it's like it's just stuff. And when you start cracking the onion to that, you start realizing, like, do I even own this stuff, or am I just close to it while I'm alive? Like, I haven't
Mm.
like paid
Or
to
does it
own
own
this.
me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've paid for this to where I'm almost like renting it, until it's gone.
Yeah. There are billions of dollars spent every year to tell us that we smell bad, look bad, have bad breath, and don't know and don't know what we're doing, you know?
That's so funny. Yeah, that's so true. It's like you're
But it's
not
true.
okay. Yeah,
You got deodorant and soap commercials, you got toothpaste commercials, all because we smell bad and we look bad, and that's gonna make it better.
big industry, big industry.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. But
convincing.
to that point, you're right, those are the influences that we don't realize, but those are the subtle chips, little
Mm,
chirps in the ear. They're like, "See? You don't even smell good. See? You got yellow teeth." All those things. Yeah,
mhm.
and so did half the world. You know?
Yeah,
At least you got teeth. Or
more
did
than half.
my yeah, and I have family members that don't have teeth. It
Right,
doesn't matter.
right.
You're yeah, so anyway, sorry.
I'm like starting to understand, like, when you're young and all the old guys or the old women are just kind of like they're hardened, if you will. They've like gotten to the point where like they love God, they know what's important, and they just don't care about the rest. You know what I mean? Because they
Yep.
finally
Yep.
figured it out. They're like, why am I chasing my tail on stuff that's
Yeah.
spending my energy, my time,
Mhm.
you know? But it's so easy to talk about and so hard
Mhm.
to apply because everyone, like
It
you
is.
said, is thinking, yeah, you may have been able to do it, or your situation may have been able to put you in that situation, but not mine, not mine. And you
Right.
hold it tight. You know what I mean? Like, and this doesn't define me, but it does because no one will
Mhm.
understand it, and you kind of like,
Right.
and you're fighting with yourself the whole time. And
You've
it turns
miscalled
out,
yourself the holy exception.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the phrase I use when I talk about the retreat, I went to the
Mhm.
retreat believing the lie that everything in the Bible was good enough for everyone else but me, because I was
Yeah.
too screwed up, too far gone, a total waste of space.
Me
And
too.
that lie was exposed. But yeah, when we believe the lie our brains are telling us, and I want to phrase it that way because if we say that we're telling ourselves, that can become another load of dirt
Right.
on the stack. But if
Right.
if we believe the lie that our brain is trying to tell us, because our brain is trying to help us survive and that's all it knows to tell us,
Mhm.
then yes, we are doing ourselves a disservice.
Yeah.
Because you one thing I'm learning as I'm working through some trauma stuff with my counselor, and it's been really intriguing and really cool at the same time and very helpful, is that your brain is trying to help you. Your
Mhm.
brain is trying to help you survive, and it only has the information that it had up to that moment in time.
Mhm.
After that, think of like a computer program, how it keeps feeding on itself,
Yeah.
or like if you're on a path, okay, and you're going to take a shortcut, and you try to go this way, but then you realize that there is no shortcut, and before long you're that far off.
Mhm.
That's what's happening with your brain. Your brain has the information up to this moment in time, and it's trying to help you, thinking it's going to help you get around that way, and really is taking you on a ride this way. And you're
Mhm.
fighting like hell trying to find your way back home. And your
Yeah.
brain it's not your enemy. It's trying to help you, and it needs help from outside as well. Because after
Mhm.
a while, as a computer programmer, just just like a computer program just kind of keeps going on a ride because it's
Yeah.
starting with faulty information. And that's
Yeah.
the way that you are able to help yourself is invite someone else in. Yes, it's risky. Take it from Cam and I. If you don't trust anybody else, give us that much trust. We're not that far ahead of you, but we are that far ahead where we can say, take that step because we've both taken it and you have heard in us and seen in us in just this little bit of time where that can take you.
Mhm.
And that little step, that first step, your step ahead, what I call for myself my baby step of obedience of what's God want me to do next. But
Yeah.
that next step helps your brain serve you better.
Yeah. 100%. Well said, Sue.
Been around the horn a while, but I'm learning, that the whole trauma approach to things
Mhm.
has been really eye-opening because we're dealing with things in a whole different way. I mean, honestly, Amanda and I are talking about the divorce right now because we never really talked about it. And
Mhm.
I'm like, I thought I was kind of golden on that, but I'm seeing how even that affected me. And she knows, like I said, we've been together 17 years now. So we have a really strong relationship. And she
Mhm.
knows that I want to be thorough. We're not going to dig up stuff, but
Mhm.
as we're finding things related, I want to make sure that I'm at total peace. I
Mhm.
don't want to leave room for remnants. That's just where I'm at. That's not where
Yeah.
everybody's at. One of the
Yeah.
things that Amanda helped me with, and I would not have been able to get to this point. I never would have thought about it. And again, I'm coming from a Christ follower viewpoint here, is that the day that I was raped, God's heart broke for two people that day, broke for my perpetrator and me. And I never thought about it that way. That doesn't
Mm.
excuse anything.
Right.
It doesn't make anything right. It doesn't make anything make sense. What it does is help me pray for that person because if
Mhm.
it wasn't on the radar for me and this was my classmate, what was my classmate being exposed to or God forbid experiencing that led him to act out?
Wow.
Again, doesn't let anything off the hook, but it puts responsibility at the proper place so I can let my 7-year-old little girl off the hook and not blame her anymore.
Wow. Good job. That's amazing. And you mentioned something that like your purpose now in processing is to find peace, right? And
Mhm.
that's such a cool place to be because then you're really feeling it. You're able to unlock and kind of like let the doors open. To anyone who's listening who is trying to fix themselves and it's anything like me, you may be in not hyperactive, what's it called?
Hypervigilant? Hypervigilant?
Hyper vigilant with your
We understand the
with
terminology.
with your own thoughts. So what happened for
Mhm.
me is like, okay,
Oh.
I'm gonna pull myself together. I'm
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
fix this. I have a thought. What does this mean? What does this mean? You know, I got to fix it. Blah blah blah. Next thought. What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? I got to look
Mhm,
at it. I got to go over it. I got to,
mhm,
just recycle, recycle,
mhm,
recycle, recycle. And I was telling my therapist about that, and she introduced the idea of kind of leaves on the stream. The idea that if there were a bunch of
mm,
leaves drifting down the stream, just let them pass. You don't have to pick everyone up and label it,
mhm,
and that started the beginning for me where I could, because I thought I had to go over the top to heal compared to getting calm, grounded, and present. So I was
mhm,
almost like ready for a fight, looking for these things, and
mhm,
I'm like, once I do this, I'll be healthy. Once I do this, I'll be back to who I was. A bunch of that stuff, and you learn a lot through the process. That well, first off, not all those thoughts matter, and the other thing I just said is you are not going to return to the person that you were. And that's
right,
actually okay. It's actually better if you let it
mhm,
be it because you can lean into it. And like Sue has said, if you're just one step ahead of someone, you can help them forward,
mhm,
and there's
exactly,
power to these stories. We're going
mhm,
through them, we're trying to handle it on our own. You don't have to handle it alone. Okay. You reach out to Sue if you need her. If
please.
she feels safe to you, you can reach out to us if it feels safe to you. And, Sue, do you have any extra golden nuggets you want to say to the person who's stuck in shit creek right now?
You don't have to stay there.
Mm,
That's and that may sound obvious, but when we are stuck in the muck, that's all we see this much, and we wanna be able to see just a little wider, and that's
mm,
where an outside person can help speak truth.
yeah.
You don't have to stay there. I understand, all of us understand how hard it is to get out, and there's hope. We are now lighthouses of hope for people who are coming behind us because we know that you are worth it. You matter. You have a story to tell that is worthy of being told. And in telling it, then you help somebody else because at, at some point, you will be telling your story to somebody who's behind you. The same
Yeah.
way Cam and I are telling our story to you right now. That's the whole power of my step ahead. I'm still reaching out for support to my counselor, but I can reach back to somebody to support them,
Oh, yeah.
and we have a human chain of support.
Yeah.
That's the power of it. So my parting thought would be, you matter, and you may not believe it right now. I'm going to ask you to dare to believe you matter and trust those who have a little bit of a wider lens that want to share that with you. You
Yeah.
matter.
And exactly what she just said, you'll find yourself from going tunnel vision to your vision starting to open
Mhm.
and
Right.
open even more when you think it's fully expanded, and even more when you thought it was fully
Hmm.
expanded, and even more and you
Right.
start getting into
Hmm.
territory where you're like, wow,
Hmm.
I'm living instead of
Right.
surviving. Um,
Right. And the cold hard truth is the first step has to be yours.
yeah.
It has to be. After that, everybody's going to meet you where you are, but you
Hmm.
have to make yourself known first.
Well said, for sure. And I encourage you, if you're debating right now, you needed one more voice to say it, do it, you know, do it, choose you, do it for you. And with that, Sue, I just want to say thank you so much. It's been such a
Thank you.
blessing and a pleasure to speak with you. And I can't wait till we speak again.
Sounds great. Thanks, Cam.
If this conversation stirred something in you, hear this. You are not broken and you are not alone. Healing isn't linear and it isn't meant to be done alone. Your story matters, and taking one small step forward can change everything. If this episode resonated, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a little hope today. Check the links below to connect with Sue, and until next time, keep paddling.